you look at the offseason as a whole right now, it's been an active, busy one. I mean, I feel like, you go all the way back to the media row at the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow doing his media tour, all the way up to where we sit here today on May 1st. A lot's happened. A lot has happened, actually. And pretty much outside of one player, everything Joe Burrow asked for during that Super Bowl weekend, he got. So, and technically doesn't not have the other piece. That guy didn't get the extension that he was kind of pushing for.
Right.
So Joe Burrow got everything he wanted. The fans got a lot of what they wanted with some extensions that are done. Obviously, the free agency period was a little lackluster. I don't think, I think they were underwhelming there. And then the draft, I think everyone agreed that B range of a grade, C plus to that B, as far as that goes. As far as the whole offseason, when you consider where they were when the season ended to where they are now on May 1st, what grade would you put on the Cincinnati Bengals offseason right here? We'll start with Casey.
I wouldn't. I'm probably going to be pretty negative on this one, mainly because I expect the best out of my teams that I root for. And I don't think they put out their best outing this offseason. I think this was I wouldn't say a disaster because obviously they were able to retain two very key players and guys that I love in Tee Higgins and Jamar. But there's a couple other things that they wanted to get done, like adding to the team, making it not the same team. I don't really feel like they accomplished that. The two exterior free agents, Oren Burks and TJ Slayton.
Don't forget Lukey Pat.
Lucas Patrick. We'll see if he ends up making a significant impact on this team. I mean, I don't know. I think that the additions to the team in the offseason, free agency-wise, was not enough. And it definitely affected how the draft played out. And that altogether kind of culminates into a below-average ranking. I have it probably somewhere around like a C-, fringe D+. You just look at that Duke Tobin interview in the draft, the combine. He wanted 3 or 4 things. He wanted Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase. Trey Hendrickson's not done yet. We'll see what that ends up playing out. The grade can't be complete until that's figured out. And then adding additions to the team that's going to make an impact on the team. I don't know if he really accomplished that. And I know that it's pretty negative viewpoint because those guys are so important, Tee Higgins and Jamar. But I just expected more. Like I thought those were kind of like, that's a guarantee that you're going to do this offseason. What are you going to do outside of the guarantees this offseason that are going to put you over the edge? And I don't know if they really did enough to get over the hump. I feel like it's pretty just, staying right where you were or maybe even worse. The age-old question on this show, are the Bengals better this year than they were last year? Years prior in those off seasons, I would have said yes, they've gotten better. This year, I think they stayed the same, to be honest with you, and that's not a good spot.
Yeah,
that's not a good spot. It leaves too much variability on those games where you're having to score 40-plus points in those one-score games where
in what's supposed to be the sweet spot of your window.
Right. So I think for me, it's like a C-. I'm not too thrilled about the whole process, but I mean, they got their main goals accomplished, so they can't fail.
Yeah.
Like that's the part where I'm like, they couldn't fail because they got Jamar and T done. If they were at this point and not had either one of those guys figured out, I would have been very upset. But I can't be too upset with the team. C- feels right for me.
Yeah. So funny enough, I don't really disagree with anything Casey just said, except for the fact that Jamar and T were guarantees. I think they are for 31 teams in this league. I do not think it's a guarantee that the Bengals sign both those guys this offseason. And because of that, I think it's pretty damn close to an A+. The Bengals have gone through the Joe Burrow era with one thing guaranteed year in and year out. The offensive line has changed. The defense has changed. The play callers have changed. The only guarantee is Joe Burrow, when you're on that field, you will have elite weapons. And the Bengals found a way to break their organizational norms, get out of their comfort zone, find money we didn't know they had, and not only extend Jamar and Tee Higgins, but also extend Mike Gesicki. And I think that's something that has really flown under the radar for the Bengals this offseason as well. I think when you talk about the guarantees for the Cincinnati Bengals, if we were operating through a Bengals lens this offseason instead of being a fan, I think most of the time we all would have said, and I think we did say it, if Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins are extended, there's next to no chance that they pay Gesicki. You think they take a value slot at that tight end. Maybe you bank on Eric All's health. Maybe you bank on a draft pick sliding into that role. They didn't. They spent money on offense to keep the elite side of the ball elite, and I think that is worth something. The other side of it, I think the draft coming in at a high C, low B is pretty fair across the board if you believe in any kind of upside for Shamar Stewart. I think the Bengals left that draft with 4 starters. I think Dylan Fairchild will start at guard. I think both those linebackers are going to play significant snaps, and I think Taj Brooks is going to be our RB2. So if the linebacking group got better, the DBs can stay healthy and play better than what we saw last year because, in all honesty, maybe they didn't change the names on the roster, but we didn't see Dax Hill and DJ Turner play next to each other all year long. And going into week 1, we thought Cam Taylor-Britt was going to throw his name into the Pro Bowl conversation, not be one of the worst corners in football. So if he can take any kind of step to what we thought he was last offseason, if Dax Hill can stay healthy and play outside corner, which obviously they have enough faith in him to give him that 5th-year option to keep him here as that outside corner. If DJ Turner can get healthy and play like the awesome version of an outside corner we saw from him before he got hurt. I mean, he looked incredible before his injury against the Giants. So I'm more optimistic, I think, in a lot of the young pieces on this Bengals defense with a revamped linebacking room than I was, last year. And I do think this team got better. And I think that part of that getting better is keeping Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins in stripes next year because I don't think that was as much of a guarantee. And I think that's what pushes them up into a comfortable A, if not A+.
I disagreed with Casey until he asked the question, are the Bengals better today than they were last year? And I don't know if that answer is yes. I think it could be. I think you have some names in there. Maybe it's the draft. I don't think it's the free agents they've signed defensively that are going to move the needle. So it really all comes down to can the guys you drafted replace or at least equate to what you did last year at least. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I would venture to say it's going to be a very similar defense. Yes, you have a new defensive coordinator. Yes, they're going to change things up. But if you don't have Trey Hendrickson next year, and again, who knows what's going to happen this offseason? Who knows if he's going to get a deal done with the Bengals? Who knows if he's going to play or not play week 1, week 2, week 3, yada, yada, yada. But if they don't have Trey Hendrickson next year, I think the defense, not only did it not improve, I think it got worse. Because you're just losing so much production. Could you get some of the numbers back with the guys you drafted? Maybe. But that's asking a hell of a lot. When you're asking to replace 12 sacks, I mean, it's a lot. The team ranked nearly dead last in sacks with the sack leader. And now we're talking about removing the sack leader for a guy that had 4 sacks in college in 4 years.
Fun nugget, Micah Parsons had 5.5 sacks in college.
That's fair. How many years?
4. 3 years as a starter.
So who knows? It's a question mark. It's a jump ball as of right now. I would venture to say they're not better today than they were at the end of last year. But saying that, I do think it's been a somewhat successful offseason because I don't think anybody thought the Bengals would get both of them. I did not think the Bengals would get Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase.
To be fair to your guys' points, the grade is really incomplete. As it stands right now, like if I was a teacher, I'm grading the test. Right now, you got a C-, but I still got a couple questions left that could bump it up to a B-, a B. I mean, we're talking about the Trey Hendrickson thing, whatever they decide on that. It changes the grade if they trade him.
Would a Trey Hendrickson extension bump that grade up for you or down?
I'm not expecting an extension, but I'm expecting like a...
If they did get a 2 or 3 year extension done with Trey Hendrickson, would that bump that grade up or down for you?
Ooh.
If you pay Trey Hendrickson $33 million a year over a 3-year extension, that hurts your grade for me this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I
don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying, in terms of the trade discussion, I don't think an extension is a good decision.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do think, though, my expectation of that answer for that question as the teacher is just giving him more money this year. That's the correct answer in my mind. And I guess it's more of a subjective question for a lot of different folks. But
Bengals love sitting on cap. They're not sitting on $25 million.
Right. And that's the unknown of Pratt and the other
That's
guys
another
on
five
the team.
right there. That's another $5
Exactly.
million.
So, you're getting up to $28-30 million if you move on from Jermaine Pratt. Still,
How much did they sit on last year heading in? Because I think
it was
20.
close to 10.
Yeah.
It was
They
close
usually
to
like
10
to
or was
sit
it
around
20? It was 10?
It was close to 10 by week 1 once you
I
count
believe you,
53
yeah.
in practice squad. A lot of the numbers that you see count top 51, which doesn't count inactives in practice squad, which do take up a
good
couple
chunk.
million dollars,
That's
$6-7
heading in,
million dollars of the cap. So you have to incorporate those numbers as well. Bengals are a very unique team because I also think last year a lot of that money was saved because of what they had to do this offseason. I think that sitting on $20 million when you have to pay Jamar and T what you have to pay this year and rolling it over and having less cash spent last offseason, I think that was a very planned thing to have take place. I will be interested to see what the Bengals do this year because if they're even close to 20, I mean, that's going to be very frustrating.
Yeah.
I guess for me, you'd have to. I'm going to say B- because you did keep Jamar Chase and Jamar. I don't think there was fear of losing Jamar, but there was fear of that getting ugly. Maybe I guess the negotiations, but you did keep T. You got obviously Gesicki taken care of. Like everything Joe Burrow wanted, technically you kept him happy from that perspective. So I'm gonna say B- from there. But I mean, outside of that, it was close to a C only because all I kept hearing from Bengals fans was how much money they had to spend this offseason, and I don't think they got any impact players. And you could say, well, okay, they got the extensions done. But getting the extensions done versus the tag, putting the tag on Tee Higgins versus getting an extension done, you actually saved money by getting the extension done because you roll over some of that money. So that was supposed to save money. Same thing with Jamar. Also, like with Burrow's money, everyone said, well, when you sign him, that doesn't actually hit the books for a couple years down the road. And it's the same thing with these two. I just don't think that they act with that urgency. You have Joe freaking Burrow. And I don't feel like this organization acts with any urgency whatsoever to capitalize on that window. And I think that by the time it does get to the point to where all those contracts are hitting the cap, how are they going to navigate when they have all this money to spend and they don't navigate through it with urgency? How are we supposed to expect that they're going to make all the right decisions when they're having to really be creative when they don't have cap in their favor? They're going to have a friendly cap next year too,
Should.
right? As far as that goes. Do you feel that they don't move with the right urgency, in my opinion? You have Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
you have Jamar and T, and I thought that missing the playoffs last year was a result of the defense. You went after a defensive coordinator that you feel good about, but the rest of the league wasn't pounding down the door of Notre Dame to go acquire him. So you're hoping that's the case. You mentioned the starters that you get through the draft. Well, you got to start somebody, but did you get good starters? I mean, you're going to start them, but are they? I mean, you don't know. I mean, that's the case for most teams who go and get guys to start as rookies. I think B's friendly on my end. I'm not overwhelmed by their offseason at all. I'm pretty underwhelmed by their offseason. Yes, they got Jamar and T taken care of, but they got it taken care of in a way that had they done it sooner, it wouldn't even have been noise to begin with. So they're having to clean up a mess versus take care of business. I just think it was a very underwhelming offseason considering they should have been hitting the offseason with more urgency. You just missed the playoffs for 2 straight years. And I think a lot of their problems that we're going to be talking about in 25 potentially are the same problems they've had for the last 2 or 3 years.
For sure.
The run game, although improved, it's still not one of the best in football. The offensive line, still question marks. Defense, still not very, very good. And for 3 straight years, it's been Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins. That's all we talk about. When we talk about the offensive line, we talk about the run game, we talk about the defense. For 3 straight years, this team has had the same problems. Maybe that comes to an end this year, but it feels like they didn't technically address all of those with the urgency that they should have.
Now, I will say I'm very glad that we're going to be talking about offensive line and defense this year instead of offensive line and defense and who is Joe Burrow throwing to.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everyone that's giving the chats, more in that C range as well, I feel like everyone that's giving the Bengals a C is just not incorporating the unlikelihood of paying Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase for the Bengals. That doesn't happen. It's not something we do. We kept 2 guys that are going to keep butts in seats and have the Bengals be a fun team to watch for a long time, and I don't think that can be overstated.
Yeah, I mean, to Jacob's point, I guess, and his perspective is from a Bengals perspective. I think a lot of people in the chat are thinking more of like a
competent
league
championship
perspective. Yeah, a league
program.
perspective, and that's fine. You can again grade and fan how you want to.
Absolutely.
Right? And no one's right or wrong on this. It's a very subjective question here, and I think we're all allowed to change our answer as the offseason progresses.
And no matter what any of us grade the offseason, we all want the players to be good. I mean, they're all Bengals now. I mean, even if you give the Shamar Stewart pick a D-, we all want him to get 20 sacks. He's a Bengal now. That's how it works.
Yeah, and honestly, I think from a Bengals perspective, and I think many people would agree with this, they feel pretty comfortable right now in the building. I think they got a lot of their objectives done. I think there's maybe a few areas they would like to have maybe gotten a little more improvement on, but as of right now, I feel like they're comfortable going into next season and competing for the AFC North and hopefully for a Super Bowl. I just feel like from my perspective, which is more of a league-focused mentality and championship mentality, that, like Kenner said, they didn't really – there was no urgency there. Like some of the moments in this offseason where I thought, you know, if you were going to get Jamar and T done, I wish you would have gotten it done sooner so you could have had more of a chance in free agency. And it just kind of like snowballed, right? Like they didn't get that done, so then free agency lacked, and because of the free agency lacked, you didn't get a bunch of key players and role players. You're going into the draft having to reach, and then it just snowballed into something that ended up being, in my eyes, a below average offseason. But, you know, a lot of it, you know, the majority, the weight of this grade is keeping your key players. I mean, if they lost out on T, I mean, that's a failure in my point.
I also think you're grading it on what you wanted the ceiling to be, and I'm grading it based on what my fear of the floor was.
Yeah.
For what this offseason could be. And it's just a pessimistic way to look at the Bengals, and I'm aware that that's how I operate, but I just had no faith that they were going to give me joy this offseason. And signing Jamar and T, that's about as happy as I could be. Bengals currently plus 225 to win the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens minus 145, almost the same exact odds as week 1 of last year. Bengals tied with the Packers and the 49ers in terms of Super Bowl odds. That's just inside, right around that top 10 range. So certainly considered a contender in Vegas. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, I think a lot of that's going to come down to the start of this year and how that schedule shakes out.
And they always start out hot, so that's good.
Yeah. That's the other thing about these contracts getting done, though. I mean, obviously, you want to get Trey done before week 1, so that's not hanging over your head, whether that is just a 1-year bump or a multi-year extension or getting him to just give up and play on 16.5, which I do think is an option that's on the table here. That needs to get done before week 1 so you don't have a cloud hanging over your head. But to get these other two done and not be worrying about them the whole offseason, and we can just talk about the offensive line and who's going to start at guard, and we can just talk about, you know, these young DBs getting healthy. I do think that is a very underrated part of this season when there are so many other questions to be had. Al Golden, where are these guys going to play on the defense? What's the scheme going to be? You can focus on those things. Zach Taylor can spend more time on the defensive side of the ball, setting up Al Golden and everything that's going to happen with that culture in the new coach coming in. And I think that just gives you a level of confidence in the offense that cannot be overstated.